Hey everybody, welcome to today's Icehouse Podcast. My name is Bryar Stewart. I am the Community Manager here at the Icehouse, and today I'm really excited to be chatting with Lauren McAuslin. She is the youngest McDonald's restaurant franchisee owner in New Zealand, which I think is super cool. Yay for the younger generation rising up with 2 branches in Taranaki. She's also an alumni of the Icehouse. She's part of the community here, having just finished our owner manager program, being part of 57's cohort. So thanks heaps, Lauren, for being on the podcast.
Great to be here.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing the journey. But we like to start with some good quick fire questions to get to know the person. So first question, here we go. Coffee order.
Never trust someone that doesn't drink coffee, and I don't drink coffee.
Oh,
dangerous.
I love that. It's always a risk putting it in there, but I'm like, okay, nice.
Well, I think 95% of the population does. There's just a couple of us that are
keeping us on our toes, that's for sure. Especially with everything you handle, I'm like, power to you.
Sometimes I think I need caffeine, but not coffee.
Good call. When are you most relaxed?
When I'm not at work, probably an active relaxer. So if I can get out, go to the gym, switch my mind off, do some activities.
Awesome. Love that. What does a day in the life of Lauren look like? I think lots will be interested in this one.
Changes every day. Every day is so different. Always start my day doing some kind of exercise. So I need that to kind of wake me up and get functioning.
Cool.
If it's a bog standard work day and I've got nothing in particular on, normally get up, hit the gym, then come home, do some quick emails, some calls, head into work, normally say 10ish.
Nice.
And then we'll spend the day in between the stores, catching up with my supervisor or the restaurant managers, jumping on the floor over lunch or dinner if they need a hand, and then back home normally about 7.
So cool. Wow, what a day. I love that. Have you, or do you have a book or a podcast that you recommend others should get into?
I know I shouldn't say this right now, but I'm not much of a podcast listener. I'm very much a reader, writer, learner. So I don't take in a lot through listening. So probably books would be more my go-to. Love, typical answer, love Grinding It Out by Ray Kroc, which is about his story of how he established Macca's. But also quite like some of the Harvard Business School books that they put out each year.
Awesome. Great answer. I love that. First ever job.
Cool. Started there, and who knows, we'll probably finish there.
Very cool. I love that. Looking forward to diving a bit deeper into that soon. I have to ask this one, and it's really annoying that I'm even annoyed by the fact that I put this question in here, but I just really want to know, what is your favorite thing on the menu at Macca's?
Definitely chicken nuggets, although the McSpicy, which we've had on the menu for about a year, is almost creeping up to take that spot.
Yes, good answer. I like that. Morning or night person?
Morning, though it takes me a wee while to wake up.
Yeah. Were you born a leader, or have you developed that ability?
I think if I go back to being a kid, I was always called bossy. So I'd like to say that was actually just me being a leader. But I think you definitely develop it and fine tune how to, the subtle art of making people want to do what you want them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome answer. Cool. I feel like that was a good quick fire. Now time to sort of go that layer deeper. And I know I'm excited to hear, the story of the franchises and things too. But first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're passionate about, and what life looks like right now?
All the big questions.
It's a big one. Yeah, it's a big one. Tell us about your life.
So life right now, I think it's a funny one. And being on OMP, it was an interesting stage in my journey, because I'm probably at the point now where I need to focus on some things in my life other than work, because that's been the primary focus for ages. So this year has been about finding some hobbies and things to do outside of work, which has been challenging but fun. So learnt to ski over winter. That was entertaining for everyone that was watching me.
Awesome.
And then just got a mountain bike for summer. So we'll get into a bit of that. And I wouldn't say I'm passionate, but hopefully I'll get to enjoy both of those activities.
Awesome.
And then what else is happening in life? Probably, very much learning to try and balance work and a personal life. Work can be pretty consuming, especially those first few years of taking on a business or opening a business. And it's very much been my priority. So now learning to do the juggle, and OMP was actually really useful with that. Our groups that we broke out into got some really good advice and feedback from people who've been there a little bit longer than I had. So it was really cool. As much as OMP is about the business, I found it was really useful from a personal life aspect as well.
So cool to hear that you're at that point now going, okay, how can I balance this better, maybe to make it more sustainable long term, and coming in from that perspective. I quite like that, because it's massive. Like you, so if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, 32 is when you took on your first branch of McDonald's?
30 and came to New Plymouth at 32.
Okay, 30, came to New Plymouth 32. And yeah, now have 2 awesome stores. Tell us about that journey. How did that all happen for you? What's the ownership story?
So my parents opened a store back when I was 10. And then put a wee spanner in the works. My dad got sick when I was in my last year of uni. So he kind of tapped me on the shoulder. I'd made murmurs about maybe at some point wanting to go into the business. And he kind of said, well, if you want to, now's your time. So jumped in there and did that for a year before I finished my final year of uni. Sat my bar exams got admitted to the High Court for law while I was there. So it was cool, didn't kind of stop thinking over that time. But ended up back at Macca's doing what they call their registered applicant program. So training to be approved to be a franchisee. And then got that approval at, I think, when I was 29.
And that's quite a process, from, Yeah.
So for someone walking in off the street, it usually takes about 12 months. They'll fast track them through the Macca's management development programs and teach them all about the Macca's business and how to work on the floor, what the managerial side and the financial side of it looks like.
Great.
And then they can become approved to purchase a store.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so I purchased Blenheim back at the beginning of 2016. New Year's Day, always a great day to buy business. And yeah, just got stuck into it there. And I was really fortunate, midway through that year, got approached to have a look at the Taranaki market. So New Plymouth had come on the market. The owners, or the previous owners from here, were looking at another market. So when our MD came down and talked to me about it, I smiled and nodded. And being a good South Island girl, I had no idea where New Plymouth was. So as soon as they left, I jumped on Google and Googled where New Plymouth was and what it was about. And I think that's when Lonely Planet had just rated it the second best place in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, this sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jumped on a plane and came and visited and went, yeah, okay. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable and let's go.
Wow. So that's incredible. So darting around a bit. So you manage both teams. Obviously, you'd have teams that manage the teams on the ground, but you manage both stores from you're in New Plymouth at the moment. Is that right?
So I sold the Blenheim store in order to buy the New Plymouth one. So New Plymouth has one freestander and it had a mall store at the time. And then 2 years ago now, we opened up another freestander, which was really exciting. It was interesting timing, September 2020. So we just came out of, we were delayed for 4 weeks when we went back into, I'll try to remember what the levels are again. But the one where Auckland was fully locked down and all of our contractors couldn't get here to install equipment. So things were a bit delayed. So it was a funny time to open a new business, but actually couldn't have been better. In hindsight, the timing was perfect. It had some trials, but people were actually in a really positive mind frame at that stage. As hard as things were, we hadn't been in them for too long. People were wanting to work. They were excited when something new was happening. Looking for those small excitements in life. And so it was a really positive time to open a business.
Yeah. Wow.
And polar opposite to that, last month we actually shut our food court store. So full circle, come here, opened a store, closed a store.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Wow. Would you say closing that store has been one of the biggest challenges to date for you personally?
Really lucky with head office that we do have the support of that team, and they have closed a number of stores over the years, not a huge amount. Obviously, we open a lot more than we close.
Yeah, totally.
But at least there are people there to give you advice and talk through the process with you and help you through it. They liaise with the contractors, and then we go in and do the equipment side of it and that ourselves. So tricky, but would have been a whole lot trickier by myself, which I guess is the upside to being in a really strong franchise business.
Yeah, of course, with processes in place and everything that you can tap into. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realise that that's quite cool to know that you would have a strong relationship with head office and get that support rather than being quite individualised. Yeah.
No, it's great. It definitely makes business a whole lot easier, and especially over the last couple of years, you really do appreciate the strength of being in a franchise business. I think about some of the procedures and protocols that we had to rewrite almost overnight and continually rewrite. And people that own independent businesses, I can't even imagine the stress that they were under. It was stressful enough trying to implement them and work them out, but at least we had other people who could support by actually, the operations team came up with what those procedures and processes were, and then we had to adapt them to our stores.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, no, that gives so much context. So yeah, thanks for explaining. I'm really interested to know, how does it work, So yeah, it's very cool. I'm changing gears a bit and with another big wide open question. What is your purpose? What motivates you to get up every day?
Oh, again, really big question, and probably one of those ones that has been quite timely. And again, on OMP, we've talked quite a lot about purpose.
Cool.
Trying to, I guess, establish that and figure that out. You do, I guess, 10 years ago, my purpose would have been to become a franchisee and to be successful. And so you strive for that. And then I think now I'm at the point where I can say that I've achieved that goal and that purpose. And so now I guess there's the maintenance of that, want to stay there, but it's figuring out what that next step is. So work in progress.
I love that answer.
OMP has been really good at actually sitting down and starting to be asked that question point blank and make you think about it. Sit down in your groups where 4 strangers know more about me than my closest friends do. About my business and my personal life. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and it does force you to look at those tricky questions in life. So it has been cool.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. I love that. And you're striving for something for so long and it happens, and you do have to sort of take stock again and go, okay, cool, well, what is the next 10-year goal or sense of purpose look like? For sure.
I think for me, it's probably figuring out the next step is, what can I do to contribute? I'm happy in where I am in my life and my achievements, and what more is there that I can do for other people, for the wider community. And so some cool ideas on that were suggested through our business profile day, and some that I've come up with personally, so starting to work through them.
Yeah, that's exciting. I love that. On a similar sort of theme, what's been like a really highlight moment for you? And also then how do you choose to celebrate that success? Because I'm sure on that journey of going, this is my goal, I'm going to get there, I get there, all those little wins, how do you celebrate that success? And does one thing stick out to you?
I'd say there are probably 2. So one would have been the opening of the second store at Bell Block, or the third store at the time. That was, it felt like it had been a long time coming, especially with lockdowns in between it. So it was a really cool moment. It was also, so I guess to celebrate that, we had a huge opening party. Well, not huge, just under 100, because that's all we were allowed at the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, cool.
In the store, I had my mum come up, some of the other franchisees, all of our contractors, and all of our senior management, most of our management team as well. And so that was really neat to be able to do that. It was also really cool. It was 20 years almost to the day. I think we were one day off from when Mum and Dad had opened their first store. So it just felt like a funny little, like, okay, it's meant to be. So that was really, really neat. And the other one for me was probably when I won Operator of the Year. So again, in 2020, it was a massive year. And that was really cool. So it was a wee bit funny. We were on Zoom because we were in lockdown at the time.
Yeah, of course.
So it was a bit of a weird way to win kind of that
big award,
award that you strive for. Luckily I've got a great group of girlfriends, and so they rallied and came around, and we had an awfully large night, and I didn't feel very well the next day. So I celebrated by not going into work the next day.
Guys, not coming in today and won this big award, so fill in the blank.
And then with the team, we all went out and had a celebratory dinner, which was really neat.
Oh, special. That's so cool. I love to hear that. And yeah, cool to hear the celebrating of success as well, because I think a lot of business owners can be guilty of just moving on to the next thing really fast, but not stopping to celebrate.
I think that's a tough one, because it's often New Zealand and tall poppy syndrome. You don't want to throw it out there. And my gut instinct would have been to just move on quietly. Really wanted to acknowledge the work, that it's not really me, it's the team. Yeah,
totally. No, that's very, very cool. I love that. Oh, yes, I had to ask this question. What is a myth or a misconception about your industry that you would like to debunk? I'm sure you've got the weird looks when people say you work at McDonald's or anything like that. So anyway, I'll let you answer that question.
And that's exactly one of them. So I think I'd definitely say, Macca's isn't a dead-end job.
Yeah.
It's created some pretty phenomenal careers for a lot of people. About a third of our franchisees started as crew. Our last 3 managing directors have started as crew, either when they're at uni or as a school kid. I think that's pretty phenomenal. It's $1 billion company in New Zealand, and the managing director, started as a school kid, making burgers or serving customers. And that's a really cool story and journey that these people have been able to go on. So that's probably the biggest myth, is that people think it's a dead-end job or not something to be proud of. There are huge things that you can achieve, whether it's within the store that you've always worked in and becoming, I look at some of my school kids, and at 18 they become shift managers, and they're in charge of up to 35 people at a time at 18 years old. That's a pretty awesome achievement, and it probably speaks to what they'll go on and achieve in life. Same thing, my supervisor, who started at 16 and now is in charge of a very large business.
Brilliant.
The 20 odd franchisees that started as crew.
That's cool.
That's one of the biggies. The other one's probably the food. There are heaps of various stories about the food quality and that it may not be real. We're really lucky in New Zealand. Over 95% of what we use in all of our food packaging is sourced from within New Zealand, and we have amazing suppliers here. Super fortunate. In New Plymouth, Taranaki actually supplies a ton of what we use, so all of our beef and our cheese come from here.
Wow, that's cool.
So yeah, I've been fortunate to get to go out to the factories and actually see it going from a live cow into our beef patties.
Yeah.
Farmers on a tour every year to go and look at, they spend a lot of time raising cattle and a lot of energy and then never see the process. So we take them right from leaving the gate through to actually making a burger in store. So that's really neat to be able to go and see. And then, farmers from fries come out of just south of Timaru, and then you've got lettuces out of Pukekohe, and all of our produce is pretty amazing. And we've got fantastic suppliers.
Yeah, that's all cool. I love to hear that. And also going back to what you said around it being a dead-end job, I love the promo I started seeing this year for McDonald's around finding a job. And it was something like find your tribe or like find your people sort of thing. Yeah. And I just really loved it. I was just like, yes, of course. That is where you find, your friends in high school, and you make good connections, and then you connect with your community, and it's where you find your people. I quite liked that. It changed my thinking on it for sure.
And I think a lot of people, it does create those kind of lifelong friendships, like any job you have when you're younger. Yeah. Those people stay with you, and they do create a big impact in your life. So finding a store where you have other crew alongside you that have things in common is really important. So yeah,
find your people. I liked it. That was very cool. So you obviously lead a lot of people. You have been on your own leadership journey. What has that leadership journey looked like, and how do you stay on the pulse of managing people as your teams grow? I'm sure there's a lot of people management going on here.
Yeah. And that has been one of the trickiest things. I think probably the number one thing that spurred me to go on OMP was the change from, in Blenheim, I had one store, there were 65 odd staff. Every one of those 65 people and know them pretty well. What they do outside of work. Is it that they're at school and what their extracurriculars are, or do they have kids, and what does their partner do, and how do they juggle life? Whereas you get to now, and I've got 250, and it's really hard to know all of that about 250 people.
Yeah, wow.
So for me, one of the big things was helping my development of how to manage that growing number of people. Yeah. And I don't think there are any silver bullets. It's just having a really good team under you that you can go and then manage them, and they manage a few each, and get to know as many of them as you can. And I still like to get in there beside people and jump in and work, and I'm sure some of them look at me sideways if it's one of their first shifts and they don't know who this random person is. But hopefully, they've seen me at the orientation when I've been there and said hi, and they put 2 and 2 together, but there's a lot of people around.
Yes, so true. Must have been such a shift, taking that pressure off yourself to go, okay, it's actually okay if I don't know what every single staff member does to the degree I did in Blenheim, because it's a different level. It's a different level of growth, and having that pressure on yourself would have been too much.
And it is really hard, because I think there's a fine line as to when you can manage it and when you can't. Yeah. And so even coming to New Plymouth, we had about 120 here when I first got here, and you can still just manage it at that level. It gets tricky, but it is manageable. And then once we got up over 200, it's so difficult to stay on top of. And you sometimes do feel guilty about it, especially when you go in to talk to someone and you don't know what their name is. But I guess that's just part of it. Yeah. And it's a lot of it's actually learning to be okay with that, and to know that it is okay. And I think as long as you do still care, and you have the right people below you that can filter the info back to you that you do need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about then building that strong core team that report directly to you. And that's really interesting. Yeah, cool. Awesome. That's really great advice for people as well. Yeah, speaking of advice, being the youngest McDonald's franchise owner in New Zealand, which is very, very cool, what is a benefit of being a business owner young? And is there any advice you have for a young business owner going, okay, I want to give this a go. I'm passionate about it.
I think I'm glad I did do it young. You've got so many less responsibilities in life. The juggle with, say, having young children and trying to put 190% into a business must be immense. So I am thankful that at least I had one focus at the time.
Yeah,
and I'm in awe of the people that manage to balance family and a new business. That's pretty phenomenal. So I'd say while you're young, go for it. Sometimes it's also good to just not know what you don't know. And you're a little less fearless when you're younger and you've got nothing to lose. So I think it can be a really positive thing for people if they have the support and the get up and go to do it, but know there will be a lot of sacrifices and just be willing to make them. And I think depending on the business or any business really, those sacrifices are going to be time. Your social life will be the first thing to go. So just be willing to make that sacrifice, and I'd say it pays huge dividends. Look at how I'm able to create a life that I want now compared to, I would have had some great times partying on Saturday nights in my 20s, but wouldn't have the same opportunities I do now. And so I'm really thankful I sacrificed those nights for the life I've created today. So just go for it.
Awesome.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there will be a lot of uncomfortable moments. And just filter out the people that look at you sideways and believe in you and think that you're too young or you're a girl and you can't do it by yourself, and just ignore them and use their doubt to push you further forward to succeed.
Yeah, totally. I don't know how to word this question, but have you found that stereotypical thoughts towards you being an owner of a McDonald's? Does that ever come up for you?
There have been a couple of times. I've been super fortunate within the Macca's community. I guess I've grown up in it. So I knew most of the other franchisees. I knew a lot of the head office staff. I'd been the restaurant manager for a while. So I'd had a lot of interaction with those key people before I was a franchisee. So I think I'd managed to build that rapport and trust beforehand within the community. It's probably been more so outside of the community. And you'll get the comments like, oh, that's nice that your husband does that. Or, sure you do. Like,
yeah, that's hard. Yeah. But like you said, you've built that trust with the community that matters, right?
Yeah.
The people in there, and they back you. I'm sure they would back you 110%. So that's pretty cool.
Sometimes you just make a laugh out of it. I've got a couple of girlfriends who own, one has a construction business and the other one has a wholesaling business. And so we just, if people ask, it's, oh, well, she's just a personal shopper. Effectively she is. They just don't know the quantum of what she's buying.
So true.
Oh yeah, she just works for some, little construction company. It's not she's the managing director.
And make a bit of fun out of it, eh? Have a bit of a laugh.
If they start to give you a hard time, it's okay. Well, joke's on you.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's cool. Power to you guys. It's so awesome. And cool that you've got friends that you can bounce ideas around with that get it in terms of, the weight that comes with being a business owner in a community. It's pretty special for you to have those connections.
You've definitely got to find those people. Life's a lot easier with them.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. I'd love to hear how you even heard of the Icehouse in the first place and what that decision was like for you to decide to go on the Owner Manager program.
Yep. So for me, I've had a few friends do Icehouse over the years.
Cool.
And then I had it pop up on I think it was my Facebook feed about this time last year. I was like, oh yeah, I did think about that. So I looked at it years back and then kind of left it. And so I clicked into it and went, Oh, yeah, it's probably not bad timing. Normally I try and do 1 or 2 short courses a year, but with COVID, I hadn't done anything for the past couple. So, the money that I'd normally set aside to do those hadn't been used. So I kind of went, oh, well, now's probably as good a time as any. And I think the business had really just gone over that prior year from being a medium-sized business or small to medium that was really manageable for me at the skill level that I was at, to then being that one step bigger, probably really starting to push my boundaries of what I knew at that time. So I thought the timing was right to do something to upskill and just push myself a little bit further.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, that's cool. And how'd you find it? Was it worthwhile? And
yeah, loved it. I think my advice would be, if I could reflect back on it, in hindsight, I probably wish I'd done it 5 years ago when I was making the transition from Blenheim to New Plymouth. However, it was really interesting this time around, and at this point in my life, as I start to have that focus from being work to trying to balance life, it was actually really useful. And within my group of 5, there were a few of us at that kind of point in our journey. We had a real mixture, one who was in a brand new business, 2 of us who were kind of at that same point that I'm at, and then 2 that were at the other end of it, looking how to kind of exit successfully. So it was really interesting seeing the different timing to people's journeys and how to do that successfully and take those learnings. And I think that's probably one of the strengths of the Icehouse, is getting to see other people's journeys and learn from what they're doing.
Yeah, great. That's so cool. And also it just always blows my mind that everyone is different industries, but they get so much from it the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was really intriguing too. Kind of came away from the first one and was like, oh, everyone's having the same issues I'm having. They do nothing similar to me. And yet it's all the same problems. So, oh, okay, cool. Makes me feel a bit better.
Yeah, you're like, oh, thank goodness. But yeah, it's that layer of community again, right? Of going, okay, people get me, understand what I'm going through. Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. Is there anything that really stuck out as something you are keen or have implemented into the business and your lifestyle practically from the program? Or too soon? Might be too soon.
Some of it, like some of the resilience stuff, I found very interesting.
Yeah, cool.
And I think that's probably a timely aspect with where the world is at the moment. That was really intriguing. I also found the different leadership styles and team management profiles really interesting. And so going through the process of looking at doing them with my senior team so that we can just refresh. So with some of them that have been on board with me for quite a while, we've done it. But again, there are a few new ones in that senior team, and I think it's good timing to do those with them, just to understand why people do the actions they do. And you read those profiles and you're like, how did they know that?
Yeah.
Because they are you to an absolute T.
Yeah.
So it's great to touch back on those. And even some of the stuff like your learning styles, and go, actually, I know that. And why am I, banging my head against a wall trying to do things differently?
Yeah, so true. It's crazy how accurate those tests are. I've done one too, and you're just like reading it and you're like, how do they get this from my answers? Like, who's been watching me for the last year? Yeah.
Or even the one person in the room that forgets to do it, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's very much who you are.
It's so true. You're like, classic. You worked that one out. No, very cool, very great tool, and good to hear that it's been something you are looking at doing with your team as well. It's very helpful, that's for sure. Cool. There's so many places I could ask. I've just got a few more questions, but I just want to know this. What is your most commonly asked question from people when they find out what you do? I'm sure you would have got quite a few people ask things on Manager Programme too. about what you do, right?
Yeah, one of the biggies is what you asked earlier, like, do you eat the food? What's your favorite thing?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
yeah, every day for breakfast, and then probably every other day for lunch. Very
Well, why
much.
not?
And then I guess, what does a day look like? What's it look like being a franchise rather than an independent business?
Yeah, true.
And I outlined like some of the massive positives before, and then it comes with it depends whether you want to see them as downsides or not. You can't be all that creative. For example, I can't go and put something on the menu because I want to.
Yeah.
But you still can be creative in the degree of how you actually structure the business and run it. But you do have to meet standards and menu recipes and that type of thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I am wondering what excites you. What excites you about the future of your branches and owning these McDonald's?
Oh, probably what I can do with the people. So one of my biggest goals is I'd really like to have a staff member become a franchisee. I think that would be very cool.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of my biggest goals. The others is just to continue to develop people, give them opportunities. I love watching the really quiet young person, whether they're a school kid or finished school, come in and they're quite anxious, not very outgoing. And then after 6 months of working in the business, they're really coming out of their shell. And then 12 months later, you're starting them on the management program. Just seeing that growth and development is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's about the people. That's cool. I'll take that. And on a nice way to finish, because on a similar sort of space, is who's someone that's been really influential in your business owner journey that you'd want to thank?
Probably to stay on theme, I'd say there are probably two. Outside of my parents, I'd go with, if I start really young at high school, I had an awesome accounting teacher, and I'm still terrible at accounting. None of that has changed. She persevered, and I think I just passed my exam. I don't know how. But she was also in charge of the Young Enterprise Scheme at high school, which I did for a couple of years. And I look back on it now and look at the time and energy that she put into us, and that was pretty phenomenal, and definitely made a big difference on me knowing what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and believing I could get there. So really, really thankful for that. And the other one was probably our MD until very recently. So he came into the business at a similar time that I was started as a franchisee.
Wow.
And, it gave me some opportunities. I had to come up to New Plymouth, and then I sat on our marketing board, which he also sat on. And so, awesome. Really thankful for the belief that he had in me and the opportunities he gave me. So those two people made a massive impact.
Awesome. It's such a cool reminder that anyone, school teacher or, the MD of McDonald's New Zealand can have those same impacts of just inspiring someone and motivating them to do cool things in their life. So I love finishing on that note. But thank you so much, Lauren. That was so interesting. And I'm sure people listening are going, cool, I just have a better understanding of my local McDonald's. It's cool, but also not just that, also how you've just been so resilient over the years. It's so obvious and determined and goal-driven, and just seeing what the future looks like for you is quite exciting. So thanks heaps for sharing it on the podcast.
No worries. Thanks, Bryar. Nice to chat.